Hello and welcome everybody to Nick's Tales. Ever wondered about the chilling truth behind true crime cases? Or maybe you're fascinated by the spooky side of horror? Perhaps you enjoy history with a twist. Join me as we explore the darkest corners of reality and imagination. We'll uncover unsettling true crime stories, dissect horror's most terrifying moments, and reveal history's strangest secrets. Today, we will delve into the story of Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was one of the most infamous serial killers in American history, his name forever linked to one of the most chilling and perplexing cases of modern crime. His life story unfolds as a tale of deception, charm, and an insatiable thirst for violence. Born on November 24, 1946, in Burlington, Vermont, Theodore Robert Cowell had a humble beginning. His mother, Eleanor Louise Cowell, was a young, unwed woman who had moved back to her parents' home when she discovered she was pregnant. Ted's biological father's identity was never definitively known, though some speculated it might have been a man named Jack Worthington, a soldier. However, it's widely believed that Ted's father was either absent or never played a significant role in his early life. Ted was raised by his maternal grandparents in Tacoma, Washington, and for much of his childhood, he believed his mother was his sister, with his grandparents as his parents. His mother eventually married a man named John Bundy, and Ted took his stepfather's last name, though the relationship between Ted and his stepfather was never particularly close. Bundy's childhood was described as relatively normal, with no outward signs of the depravity that would later emerge. He was a good student and involved in local activities, even excelling in school. However, his teenage years would reveal darker tendencies. Some early accounts suggest Bundy had an odd fascination with violence and criminal behavior, though it wasn't fully apparent until later. Ted Bundy went on to attend the University of Washington in the mid-1960s, where he studied psychology. During this time, he became involved in various political movements, including working for the Republican Party, and had a reputation as a charming, well-spoken young man. However, beneath this veneer of normalcy, he was becoming more deeply disturbed. He began to exhibit symptoms of a sadistic personality, and his interactions with women were marked by a disturbing pattern of obsession and manipulation. By the early 1970s, Bundy was already embarking on his deadly journey. His first known victims were young women, typically brunette and slender, with a certain physical resemblance to his ex-girlfriend, Stephanie Brooks, a relationship that had deeply hurt him. Bundy's modus operandi was chillingly calculated. He would often feign injury or ask for help, luring women into his grasp before overpowering them. After abducting them, he would take them to secluded locations, where he would brutally assault and kill them, sometimes returning to the bodies to engage in post-mortem sexual acts. The first documented abductions occurred in 1974, but it wasn't until 1975 that Bundy's reign of terror began to attract the attention of law enforcement. By then, he had already murdered several women in Washington, Oregon, and Utah. His victims were often young college students, with long brown hair parted in the middle, a chilling pattern that would later be understood as an obsession with the woman who rejected him years earlier. Despite his outward charm and normalcy, Bundy's true nature began to surface more clearly. He was arrested in 1975 on suspicion of kidnapping and assault, and investigators soon linked him to a string of murders. However, Bundy's ability to manipulate and deceive kept him one step ahead of the authorities for years. Even while in jail, he managed to escape twice, once in 1977 from a Colorado jail, and again in 1978 after his second escape. He was finally captured for good. By this point, Bundy's notoriety had grown. He was intelligent, articulate, and capable of convincing those around him that he was innocent of his crimes. In fact, Bundy even defended himself in court during his trial, a move that only furthered his twisted ego. His trial, which took place in the late 1970s, became a media spectacle, with Bundy playing the role of the charismatic defendant, often turning on the charm in front of cameras. Bundy was eventually convicted of several murders, but he had already committed far more crimes than the authorities could ever prove. In total, he confessed to 30 murders, though it is widely believed that the true number of his victims is much higher. Bundy's killing spree spanned several states, including Washington, Oregon, Utah, and Colorado, and he was known for his ability to evade capture, despite being on the run for years. His trial was a landmark case, with Bundy defending himself with a calculated mix of denial, manipulation, and charm. However, the evidence against him was overwhelming, and in 1979, he was sentenced to death for the murder of 2 women in Florida. He was convicted after a grueling trial, and it was during this time that Bundy began to show signs of remorse, even hinting at other unsolved cases. The authorities slowly pieced together the horrific details of his other murders as he confessed to them in the months leading up to his execution. Bundy's life and crimes have been studied extensively, and his chilling ability to charm and manipulate those around him remains one of the most perplexing aspects of his case. On January 24, 1989, after years on death row, Bundy was executed in Florida's electric chair. His death marked the end of one of the most horrifying chapters in the history of American crime. Bundy's legacy endures, not just for the brutal murders he committed, but for the terrifying way in which he deceived everyone around him. His life is a tragic reminder of how a person can hide darkness behind a mask of normalcy and charm, and how someone's outward appearance can be at odds with the monsters they harbor within.